Self-esteem, high or low, has never made any sense to me. I have confidence in certain domains, reticence in others, according to my relevant abilities. I've been proud of work I've done, ashamed of things I've done, but I've never been proud or ashamed of myself. That just doesn't mean anything. To call the value of my actions into question regarding their future repetition makes sense. To call the value of my existence into question regarding its continuation is a function of either sickness or insanity. Thoughts and feelings are tools of survival. It's wrong-headed to stab yourself with them. You can't accurately make a wholesale judgment of what isn't finished yet. The self is an ephemeral and fluctuating thing. You're still growing. You don't know what your future actions will be, let alone how well you'll perform them, and you have no idea what the ripples of your past actions are ultimately leading up to. The more strongly you've regretted something, the more deeply you've learned a lesson from it. And who can say what the long-term balance between setbacks and wisdom might be? More important than how you feel about your actions is your response to the feelings. A person can be steamrolled by defeat and not want to try again, while another person failing in the same way can be incensed to self-improvement. The real mark of character is the line between passivity and activity. With failure, the passive response is defeatism, and the active response is the proverbial chip on the shoulder. The passive response to success is to bask in it and go no further, while the active response is to try to repeat or exceed it, or else run with the momentum of victory to try your hand at something else. Still, what is it people are talking about when they refer to self-esteem or use words like pride, arrogance, humility, and shame? There can be an internal barometer for pure esteem, tied to how others treat you, or you can measure your performance against the performances of those around you to assess your rank relative to the average. But the social element isn't essential, since similar emotions are as easily evoked by actions taken in private. If you were the last person on Earth and you just finished building a house, you'd feel proud of your work if the roof held up in a storm, bad about it if it collapsed. Your standing in the social hierarchy only plays a role if that's something you care about, though most people do and probably should to some extent, since it tends to be causally linked to so many other things they care about, like love, food, and shelter. What all these self-evaluative terms point to is a propensity for action and the various energy-regulating mechanisms used to compute it, for which morale seems to be a more accurate term than self-esteem. When you're performing poorly in the areas you care about, morale is low, and when you're performing well in those areas, your morale is high. Since this formula involves both performance and caring, multiple angles by which to combat low morale immediately come to mind. One is to stop caring, to detach, which is the primary strategy taken by both Buddhism and Stoicism. Unfortunately for over 500 million people, until their hearts stop beating, they'll continue caring just as much as they would have without their religious efforts. The pressure is absolute. Wherever you do manage to plug a leak, you'll add that much outpouring to the others. Suffering's built in for a reason, and all attempts to completely eliminate it are ignorant to that fundamental truth of life. The second strategy is to change what you care about. This one is actually possible, and sometimes the best path. For reasons I'll get to in other episodes, I'm neither a fan of Alcoholics Anonymous nor of prayer, but the Serenity Prayer of AA fits nicely here. In case you haven't heard it, it goes, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." One thing to keep in mind is that you can't stop caring about something by focusing on it. You have to actively increase your focus on something else. The third, and my preferred, strategy has to do with the performance, not the caring. You naturally care about something in proportion to what you perceive as its relevance in your life. And the more accurate your perception of such things is, the less sense it makes to try and change your focus. In this case, personal growth and skill development form the foundation of future morale. When you're getting better at something that matters to you, becoming more effective in that domain, you're setting yourself up for success and the high morale that comes with it. When you're stagnant, you're setting yourself up for failure and the consequent low morale. That's all there is to it. Nothing in religion, psychology, philosophy, therapy, nutrition, physiology, or pharmacology can compare with the wisdom that growth, in the form of skill acquisition, is the proper response to depleted enthusiasm. If you care enough to be negative, you care enough to tie your boots. Take up a hobby, learn a new language, learn one little technique of whatever it is you admire. Doubting the efficacy of this betrays an intentional commitment to your fallen state. Once you understand that morale is only high when you're performing well, refusing to try means you're planning on not performing at all, which means you're aiming for low morale on purpose. Wallowing in self-pity is a parasitic strategy taken to infect others with pity for you, trying to manipulate them into committing resources to you. We should all recognize it for the morally reprehensible behavior that it is. That's not to say that you're obligated to hide the fact that you don't think highly of yourself at some given time. There's nothing wrong with remarking on it, nothing wrong with asking for help with it. There's something very wrong with pretending it's permanent, refusing to budge, and creating a black hole for those who care about you to sink kindness into. If you're not choosing to grow, you're choosing to die. Doesn't matter what you've done up until this moment. You don't need anyone's permission to change your approach. Go ahead and try something new.